Hey, everybody, it is Miss Anchors once again here with our Professionals by Pathway Career Exploration event. And I know that's been happening all month. And so hopefully you're here to join us. Today we have Lt Baggins. She is an Air Force ROTC scholarship and admissions advisor. Try to say that like 20 times fast. I would be a little scared there. So before we get started, I wanted to remind everybody this is being recorded for future use for students. We have the next 30 minutes to learn about this career field, and we will be monitoring any questions that students may submit. So let's get started, and so our students can learn about various professions and how they can prepare for their future. Hey, Sarah, good morning.
Good
Welcome.
morning.
Tell us a little bit about you and just sort of your pathway to your career.
Hi everyone. I'm Lieutenant Lt Baggins, and I'm the Air Force ROTC Scholarship and Admission Advisor for students who live in both Washington and Alaska. I am actually originally from North Carolina, so this is my first time being on the West Coast, but it was my first active duty assignment as an Air Force officer. And I went to school in North Carolina. I went to a small school called Elon University, and I received my degree in applied mathematics there. And the Air Force helped me pay for that degree. And in addition to that, I'm now going to get my master's of social work, which the Air Force is also helping me pay for. And on top of that, I have an amazing active duty job where I get to speak to amazing students like you. And really, I think what got me to this pathway of going through Air Force ROTC in college, getting my degree, and having a career in the Air Force, I would say really started with my need to pay for college. I think, yes, I did have a calling to serve. I really liked the idea of being a leader in the Air Force and having that ability to be in dynamic teamwork settings. But I knew college was expensive and I knew I needed to get there somehow, but I didn't know how I was going to pay for it.
Okay, so first, before you go, I'm gonna stop you
Uh-huh.
here for a minute. Applied mathematics.
Yes.
What job were you going to do with applied mathematics? Like, why did you like what appealed you to go to school for applied mathematics?
Yeah, so funny story. I actually started as a chemistry major and I found out I didn't really like that, but I had taken like a higher level calc class for one of my chem requirements and realized that I really loved math and I missed it from high school. So I went on to get my degree in applied math. But I don't want to do anything with my math degree. There are plenty of fields in the Air Force and Space Force that you can use STEM degrees with, obviously, because STEM degrees are highly desired by the Air Force and Space Force. But for me, my passion is really helping people and supporting people. And that's why I'm going off to get my Master of Social Work.
Okay, so I'm gonna lead you back to this question, just being the teacher in me.
Yes.
You started with chemistry. So what
Mhm.
happened from high school to college that like I want to get a chemistry degree? Most kids I think don't have a clue what they want to do until they get to college and then they pick these degrees and then I think we all have heard like I got a degree but I'm not even working in that
Right.
job anymore. So what was your step like? What was high school like for you in your head like your freshman through senior year? What were you thinking? This is the job that I want to do, and then what led you to that chemistry? And then what if you hadn't gotten the opportunity to do ROTC, what were you going to do with your life?
Right. So I'm going to preface this by saying, students, it is 100% okay to change your mind. I am a very structured, organized person, and I felt like changing or maybe not achieving my plan A was a failure on my part, and that's not true. Having a variety of knowledge in your pocket and being able to change plans and adapt is actually a big sign of your intelligence and your ability to achieve things. So, first, I want to preface it by saying that because I went through a lot of changes in my high school and college careers. So, in high school, I honestly had no idea what I wanted to do. I just knew that I liked science, more so environmental based sciences. I just really enjoyed classes like that. And when I applied for my Air Force ROTC scholarship for school, I had to pick a technical degree. That's not a necessity for our scholarship program, but I ended up picking one, and that was chemistry. So while I wanted to stick with an environmental science, I ended up doing that for the sake of the scholarship. Now, then I realized, from that transition period of, okay, I'm kind of settling for a degree that I'm not sure if I'm going to love, but it's kind of rooted in what I wanted to do in high school. my ideas started to change in college based on the classes I was taking. So that's what kind of led me to changing my degree to math. And I loved it. But along the way, I was minoring in certain things like criminal justice studies. And I realized, ooh, that's actually what I really want to do. I want to do something related to felony level crimes in the Air Force. So I went after that career, which is the Office of Special Investigations in the Air Force. That plan fell through because I got put on the small alternate list for that career field, and I had to find a backup plan. And so that's why I kind of preface this the answer to this question, which with it's okay to have your plans change, because what ended up happening is it led me to a path that I know I'm going to love even more, and that's the world of force support. That's going to be my career in the Air Force, which is literally helping the Air Force run on a facility standpoint and just helping our people be satisfied in the Air Force. So it led me to that path, which I love and I'm excited for.
Did you do JORTC in high school and then that led you into ROTC? So like where was that jump from I'm a senior in high school and I'm going to this college and I'm doing ROTC? Like where's that jump? Like how did you even figure out, hey, I can do military, it'll pay for it. When I'm done, I'm going to be an officer. Like where did that jump come from? Like what was your start of your senior year leading to that process? How did you get into that program?
Right. So my high school did not offer JROTC, so I didn't have any military experience. The closest thing that came to military experience is that I had a little bit of marching drill experience from marching band, but that was it. So though I did have a family connection. My uncle was in the Air Force, and honestly, I think around the end of my sophomore year or junior year in high school, I started to consider the military, mostly because of just the way I worked in high school. So I was a driven student. I really, like I said, I liked structure, I liked organization, and I loved being a leader. And I began to talk to some people about the military and realized that if you become an officer in one of our branches of service, you become a leader. And I really wanted to do that in my future career. So that was kind of the big picture, having no military experience. And then I started doing research. I looked into the academies, and my uncle convinced me that the Air Force was the right branch to go into. And I realized that the academy wasn't for me because that's a 24/7 military environment, and I didn't necessarily want that. I wanted military training in college to go alongside my degree, but I didn't want it to be 24/7. And that's where I ultimately decided on Air Force ROTC because it's a mixture of getting your degree, being a normal college student, and then having your military training kind of scattered throughout your week.
Yeah, I had the opportunity to drive by the Air Force Academy, just
Oh,
drive by
nice.
it this summer, and it is just positioned
Beautiful.
back there on the hill. It was from the freeway and looked back, but it's very predominant when you drive through Colorado
Oh,
Springs,
absolutely.
and it would be a cool place to tour and see. I think it's a great way, but I also think that kids don't hear enough about ROTC as a pathway to be a leader in our military forces. So, okay. Tell us about, okay, so you picked your course. Tell us what sort of college life looked like for you. What was your commitment to the military like? And then maybe what was the commitment like off campus? Like, how did you balance those two things?
Right. So I would say time management, especially if you're looking into being a college student, that alone is going to require time management on your part. And if you're tacking on Air Force ROTC, you're absolutely going to need that skill. Now, I'll say that, but just know that jumping into college, yes, you need to have a little bit of a foundational skill for that, which I know you're learning in high school as students. But there's going to be a lot in college that's going to help you develop that skill and be an expert in it by the time you leave college. So for me, and what I really enjoyed about Air Force ROTC is that they emphasized you are a student first, a cadet second. So I always prioritize my academics. And I was a busy bee in college. I really like being busy. That's just, what I like to do. And I think really taking the opportunity to explore those topics that interest you kept me going in college. I think because school is so competitive these days, it's really easy for students to burn yourself out. I know I did that. I did that in high school, but I changed my perspective in college. And yes, I met the requirements in my degree plan, but I also explored topics that made me passionate and made me want to keep learning about things in college. And that's ultimately what led to my desire to go into social work and have a certain career in the Air Force. So exploring those passions, I think, really helps with your ability to manage time and to find that drive to keep going in college.
So
Um,
did you have to wear your uniform every day that you were on campus? And then did you have drill every day, or did you have commitments in the summer? Like what was the military? You gave a great example of like dedication and commitment to the educational piece for what was the military commitment like during your four
right.
year?
Right. So, like I said, there's a balance between your civilian and military life in college when you go through Air Force ROTC. So, you're only going to wear your uniform for a whole day, one day of the week, typically. That's the one day of the week where we have something called Leadership Laboratory. And that's just a hands on learning environment where you're applying your followership and leadership skills with your peers. Now, besides that, you have physical training twice a week. You wear a little workout outfit for that. But that's in the mornings, and you go home and change, and then you go back to your academic classes. And then we have something called aerospace studies once a week. And it sounds really daunting, but it's just a classroom setting where you're learning about the Air Force. You're not learning about high tech aerospace engineering or anything. It's just literally you're learning about the Air Force. So that's kind of what it looked like. And then and that was on a week to week schedule. Now, in terms of military training during the summer, really the only time that there's mandatory summer work is between your sophomore and junior year in the program during something we call field training, which I like to describe as an intensive leadership evaluation course where they're going to evaluate you on all the things you've learned in your first 2 years of the program. And they're going to make sure that you are able to go on into your upperclassmen years and lead the cadet wing when you return. That course is normally 2 weeks of your summer, and typically they're really good with working around academic commitments that you have in the summertime if you maybe got an internship or something like that. Um, Other than that, your summers are free. The rest of your free time in college is yours. I personally used my summertime to do really cool programs that Air Force ROTC offered, like going to the Air Force Academy and learning about satellites and being able to operate one, to going to New Mexico and exploring a base there and the local community.
So did you have to go to boot camp?
So that's field training, actually.
Okay.
So
Okay.
our military boot camp is labeled field training, but it really is. I would say it's less about learning everything you need to know about the military, because in ROTC it's a long 4 year progression. So you've already learned those basics. Um, when we go to field training, it's really an evaluation of our leadership skills and our ability to be active followers.
I had one other question.
I know you had asked earlier about careers that I might have chosen
Yeah,
had I not done
I
the Air
mean,
Force. Um, and I think that this still stands. I mean, I'm really excited about my career in social work, and I have specific ideas of what I want to do there. But I will say that I've always loved the idea of either being a teacher or being a veterinarian. So who knows? The beauty of the Air Force is that I can do 20 years and get out and be in my younger 40s. So I can start a whole second career if I want to. Maybe use my master's of social work, maybe not. Maybe go off to get another degree. So
my previous high school that I worked at, they had a JORTC program, and that, they had two people, I think it was an Army one, but they had
right,
two Army veterans that came in and did that. And I know that
very
that's a
cool.
great experience. So, hey, you could still, that social work degree and the military degree, find the right fix for where those are. Oh, I remember what my question was. How many students were in your, you use the correct terminology, your brigade at the
Detachment.
college, your
Mhm.
detachment, thank you, detachment at the college that you were in?
Right. So, and that will differ based on your university and your detachment based on how many people go there. Mine was an average size. So our cadet wing was somewhere every semester between 100 to 120 cadets. So not, I mean, a good amount of people, but not overwhelming to where you felt like you maybe didn't have a voice or something. You weren't just a number in a program that size. But there are smaller detachments. I know at the University of Alaska Anchorage, their detachment there is like 40 cadets. So that's a more niche environment. So it really depends on the detachment that you're going to.
So you've given us a great history of how you got to where you are. What does your day-to-day life look like for you in your job that you currently have now?
So right now, like I said, I'm a scholarship and admissions advisor. So my primary goal is to help students interested in the Air Force ROTC program receive, apply and receive scholarships to help them get through school. So, I'm going to events like this and talking to lots of amazing students who are interested or not interested and just want to talk about college and high school life. And, on top of that, I also help college students that are interested in joining the program as well. Maybe they've just done a year of college and they want to jump in their sophomore year and join the program. So I help students with that as well. And I would say that's pretty much the gist of my job is just helping to advise students on their decisions to enter the service one day.
So where do you report? Like, do you have to report to, I mean, obviously with coronavirus, it's changed a lot of how things are done. So what do you have to report once a month, like to your base that you're attached to? What does your, now that you're doing your job, and I think I've actually probably been to that military office in downtown Seattle. Um, but what is your commitment now in the sense of your military commitment with your job and having to get in your uniform? What does that look like for you?
Right. So the job I'm in right now is actually a unique one that I had to apply to. It's only a year-long assignment, which isn't typical unless, maybe you're on a longer deployment or you're on an overseas short tour. But for this job, I applied to it because I came out of the Air Force ROTC program and really wanted to talk to students for even longer about it. So that's why I applied for this job and got it. And I don't report to a base. Yes, my servicing base is at McCord Air Force Base, but I don't go to work there. I work out of the University of Washington, so I have a very independent schedule. I set it for myself, and I go into the office 2 days a week because of COVID. Now, when I transition into my traditional career in the Air Force, which will, lead into 2 to 3 year assignments, when the rotations happen, that will be a traditional job where I drive to base every day and I work there and I report to that base for my job. But right now I'm just living in Seattle and enjoying life here and working on a college campus.
So what is the best part about your job every day?
I think talking to students, I really do love it. I'm really passionate about helping students make their long-term career decisions and letting them know that it's okay to change your mind and to be okay with those decisions. I think I'm really passionate about it because I've struggled through that, and I don't want that mindset of failure to continue in students' minds because that's just so far from the truth. So being able to encourage youth and make sure that they know that they are able to achieve their ambitions and that if those ambitions change, that's okay. That's my favorite part of the job.
Okay, best qualities a leader should have.
Oh boy. I would say a genuine care for their people, especially with regards to seeing them develop as individuals. I think wanting to be able to see people improve is so important. um, I would say the ability to listen, not just to hear people, but to actively listen to what they're saying and make sure that you can set aside your own ideas and hear their ideas is so important as a leader. Um, and I would say a healthy level of confidence. I know that's something that I've personally struggled with, is having self-confidence. And I think especially when you realize the importance of being a part of a team, and that yes, while you might be a leader of that team, you have a lot of people to support you and that look up to you. That can really help you grow your level of confidence. And it's a journey. Not gonna lie, I'm not 100% there yet, but I think that those are probably three key things to being a great leader.
What do you think is the worst thing that a leader can do?
Oh boy.
Putting you on the spot
Uh,
there.
yeah. So I mean, just in college, in academic environments, I've had some bad leadership experiences, unfortunately. And I would say, it kind of is the opposite of one of the good characteristics is not listening to your people and not realizing that they might be struggling, that they might feel like they don't have a voice because of your presence. Being in that kind of space where the leader is just completely dominating and doesn't really care to ask what their people think, I think perpetuates toxic leadership environments. So I would say not having the ability to listen to your people is probably one of the worst leadership traits.
So I'm just going to go like from one of the questions, what attracts people to your industry? Like, what do you think, what is your like top 3 reasons somebody should join the Air Force ROTC program? And
Sure.
what kind of person is going to benefit from being in that program? So like, what's your ideal candidate basically?
Sure. So I would say reasons that people really want to do ROTC are for the leadership and professional development. I really don't think any other on campus, I mean, I don't know if you want to call ROTC a club, but organization does as much leadership and professional development as ROTC does. I think having a network or a family is probably the second reason. I mean, you go through 4 years with these cadets and you really form bonds that are lifelong. And I would also just say that the third reason is probably that entry into a guaranteed job, one that offers lots of great benefits, and really allows you the ability to go into really neat, cool STEM jobs if you're interested, or anything else, because Air Force bases need to be self-sustaining communities. So we need every job under the sun to keep it running. So I
So
think, mhm.
yeah, like list if a student was sitting in front of you and they're like, I have no clue what I want to do, but I know I want to go into the military. What are like 10 job or maybe 5 jobs that people have no clue that you could get and do in the Air Force?
Yeah, so I would say for support like mine, being able to manage the facilities on bases and make sure that everyone has their award packets put together correctly, and then working with smaller groups of people on bases to make sure that they receive the support and aid that they need to be successful in their jobs. For support does that. I would say logistics. So that's a really neat career field where every day is a little bit different. Security forces. So if you're ever interested in law enforcement of any kind, security forces are kind of our military police. There's lots of really neat health professions in the Air Force if you're interested in that. Airfield operations, so you're helping plan planes take off and land, and you're monitoring the airways. So you're not, or runway, excuse me, you're not necessarily in a plane, but you're helping the planes, land and take off. Um, what else? Let's see. Acquisitions, finance, um,
So basically,
intelligence.
basically any job that I could get in the civilian world, I could probably find a job in the military.
Correct. And yes, some of those jobs, like health professions, do tend to be a bit more competitive, but those jobs are still available to you. And like I said, every Air Force base is its own community, and it needs to be able to sustain its own community. So we need every job you could think of to keep it running.
Okay, I'm going to reach. So we're about 7 minutes away from finishing, but I'm going to reach out to Miss Bertram and see if the students that are watching, I think we might have one or two, if they had any questions for Sarah.
Sure.
And if not, I can.
Yeah, there's no Q&A.
Okay, sweet. Well, what is your ultimate dream in finishing out are you going to finish out 20 years in the Air Force? And when you end your job, where do you see yourself ending? Like, are you going to try to be a general? Are you going to try, like, what is your end goal in the Air Force?
I really want to make it to the rank of colonel. I want to do 20 years, and I want to be able to, see the world and be stationed in really neat places. But I think my ultimate goal, regardless of what rank I make it to, is to improve the Air Force's environment and culture for those that follow after me. I think that we're being very progressive in the way that we're making the Air Force and Space Force more inclusive for future generations, and I want to be a part of that mission. So I think that yes, while I ultimately joined the Air Force to help me pay for college, my mindset, my perspective of why I'm here and why I'm serving has really changed and developed into that idea. So that's my ultimate goal. And hopefully after my career in the Air Force, I'll be doing something with social work, or maybe I'll go after a whole different degree and try something new.
Awesome. How many colleges in the United States, and I don't know if this is you might have it or you might not, have a Air Force ROTC program?
Yeah, so we offer Air Force ROTC at over 1,100 colleges nationwide and in Puerto Rico. So lots of
Awesome.
options.
And I heard through the grapevine that you had some pictures, so I'm gonna let you show us your pictures.
Yes. So I will go ahead and share my screen here. I just think it's fun to kind of, yes,
Yeah.
the Air Force ROTC is very, academic and there's military training, but there's also really cool stuff that you can do as a cadet in the program and also as a normal college student. So over here in the top left, that's me, and my friends at a program called Air Operations. And that's that trip where I got to New Mexico and we got to tour a base for basically 2 weeks. And in that top layer, I'm in what we call an RPA box, for a lack of a better word. An RPA is a remotely piloted aircraft. So it's a fancy name for a drone. And I got to go into that technology box and see what all that looked like, which was really neat. And then on the bottom row, that middle picture is again in New Mexico on that same trip. And we got to go to the White Sands, now National Park, which was a really cool experience. And we slid down sandhills, which was really cool. And then in the bottom left corner, that's me in Colorado Springs at the Space 250 program. And this was where I went to the Air Force Academy and got to learn how to operate a real satellite that USAFA has in orbit. And while I don't want to go into the Space Force, this was right around the time when it was being developed. So it was really cool to learn about what our future Space Force airmen are going to be doing. And then the top middle picture and the bottom right picture, those are my trips from a study abroad program that I did in college. So if you do Air Force ROTC, you can still study abroad. I went to Ireland. So this is me at the Giant's Causeway, and then these are the Cliffs of Moher. And then in the top right picture, I talked about that field training program that you'll go to. You actually have the opportunity to go back a second summer in a row and be what we call a cadet training assistant. That's the acronym that you see on my hat. And this is a position where you go back and you help to train the cadets that are coming through for their first time. So I got to go there and be a part of that program, which was really fun. So just a snapshot here of the combination of my Air Force ROTC career and then the cool academic things I got to do with my college. So
Awesome. So I'm going to wrap it up with our last question. Any outgoing advice that you can give to a high school student that might be struggling and doesn't know where to turn?
absolutely.
The sense of like their future career. I mean, I know where they know how to turn if they are
Right.
struggling in that sense, but like their future career or direction for a future pathway.
Right. I think the thing that's helped me most is when I ask for help from a mentor. I think that a lot of times, because I'm such an independently minded person and just with the competitive nature of school these days, I saw asking for help, asking for networking opportunities as kind of a sign of weakness, like I couldn't do it on my own. And I didn't want to be vulnerable in that way, but I promise you that is a sign of strength. It's a sign that you want to be resilient and that you want to find a pathway for yourself. So find that mentor, find someone that you're really comfortable with speaking to, and ask them for help, because I guarantee they're going to be proud of you for coming to them and they're going to want to help you out. So please, please, please ask for help. I know every time I do it, I've never regretted it, and I wish I would have done it more. So if you need help with deciding on your long-term goals, ask for help. There's someone that has connections and knowledge for you.
Sarah, I am so glad that I got the opportunity to speak to you today. And thank you so much for your knowledge and just your passion for your job and your passion for helping people and for serving our country. And I think you have a huge, bright future ahead of you. And I hope you make it to that. Oh, shoot, I just forgot the rank that you want to get to.
Colonel.
Colonel. You make
Thank
it
you.
Colonel in 20 years. And I know that you will be giving back to your Air Force and the community that you live into, just from my brief time with you. So thank you so much for joining us. Definitely want to let the kids know, like she's a great resource. I'm sure we can find her email address and
Yes.
maybe we can have her after COVID happens. If next year, if she's around before she leaves to her next post, get her on campus. So thank you so much, Sarah. I appreciate your time this morning.